What's going on, guys? Let's get a little closer so you can see my face. This is episode 15 of Dispersing the Cloud, and we are doing two different books today. We're doing Less is More by, it's James Jennings, or Jason Jennings, excuse me, and we are also doing Grant Cardone, Be Obsessed or Be Average. So today, give you guys a little preview. Today I'm in the room / we'll call it storage space that I rent. I'm here maybe twice a month, something like that. My buddy Josh's house. He lets me rent this room for like dirt cheap for when I'm in town, so that's kind of awesome. He's doing some construction in the living room right now, and I'm trying to bust this book review out for you guys. So I'm going to do my best today to answer some questions as you guys write in. Let me go to my Facebook page real quick. But let's jump into it. Bam, hold on. This thing's loading up. Alright, let's jump into it. This week, kind of a recap of what I had going on. I did a TED Talk. I didn't do a TED Talk. So someday maybe. I did a small group TED Talk. So one of the churches that I attend, Liberty Towers, we do a small group, and in that small group we basically just watch TED Talk videos and talk about them. That was kind of cool. There's probably like 2 or 3 different really like-minded people that showed up that I hadn't met before, that I got to like shoot different ideas off of and just kind of chat with and find out about them. So that was kind of cool. I had the meeting with Rags. So Rags is one of our sponsors for the tour, and they just moved from sponsor to partner. I didn't even know this about Rags. Rags actually runs a nonprofit, which is freaking sweet. They actually work with the inner city youth to provide jobs, teach them how to work, business, all the above. And so obviously as soon as their owner started talking about that, I was just like, okay, well, you're no longer going to be sponsoring the tour. Now the tour is going to give you money, because that's the whole purpose of the tour, is to give back to communities and build up communities. So we're excited to have them as a partner now. And we talked about getting all the merchandise set up for the tour and all the above. I had a meeting / jam session with the worship leader at Vinewood, Cameron. We got together, and if you guys follow me on, I think, Instagram, you guys would have seen that jam session. We came up with a remix of one of my songs from the album. I didn't know what to do with it, and we've been working on it for like 3 weeks, and it didn't feel right, so we just remixed it, and now we have like an upbeat version of the same song. And I kind of like it, so you guys can check that out on Instagram. You can see that. And then we did some mixing this week. So most of the recording is done. 90% of what needs to be done on the album is now mixing. So we did some mixing. I don't have ears on that, or I haven't got to hear what we've done so far. But the studio did a bunch of mixing last week. And then yesterday, I was in San Francisco, and we did a Visa commercial for Fragoza Media and Entertainment. We teamed up again with Dwyer Productions and shot all day out there. Another good experience with them. Let's hop into process. This is huge. Write your goals down every single day. This is something I'm failing at. And every book, again, that I'm reading is reminding me, write your goals down every single day, and I keep failing and failing and failing to do this. I bought myself a pad or a little notebook to actually do this every single day. The second part of my process is not having a routine. Part of the problem is most people who are saying to write down your goals are saying put the pad right next to your bed, and you could just do it every morning when you wake up. Problem is, every morning when I wake up is usually in a different place, so that's kind of tough for me. So I'm hoping that journal helps out with that. Goals, motivation. I'm still needing motivation, and I'm finding a lot of that through the books I'm reading, but through videos online and YouTube. There was something that was mentioned in Be Obsessed or Be Average, was call reluctance. So right now I've probably made, I don't know, maybe about 150 phone calls in the last like couple weeks, but that's not that much for a couple weeks. Obviously I've had other things going on, other projects, but I should be able to make 60 to 100 phone calls in a day if I'm really pushing it. And a lot of the reason I haven't done that is call reluctance. I used to work for a company where all we did was make phone calls and door knocks and cold calls and all the above. And there's this like weird thing when you get under pressure to sell or to get someone to accept your product. There's a huge call reluctance, and it's crazy. Even when you believe in the product, even when you believe full-heartedly that this is what you should be doing, there's still like this weird call reluctance that gets you. And I find it comical when I notice it in myself, because I'm like coming from sales. Now I'm actually making calls for myself to do the thing that I love, so it doesn't feel the same, but yet you still feel the call reluctance. I thought that was kind of funny, and a good reminder that it has to be passion. Like if you don't have passion for what you're doing, God, man, I remember call reluctance when I used to have my corporate sales job. That sucked. Like that, I mean, that wasn't funny. That was really just like, oh my God, the last thing I want to do is call somebody right now and talk about this because I'm not pumped about what I do. So I thought that was kind of a funny part of my process. Sorry for my fingers up in your face. I'm moving the screen on my keyboard here so I can make it to the next thing. Looks like, let me go to this. No, that's not it. I'm trying to hop on this live video so I can catch comments as they come in, but I think no one's commented yet, so we're good. So let's jump into the book. Grant Cardone, Be Obsessed or Be Average, was legit. Grant Cardone never disappoints, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube video or a book. All of his books so far, I think I've rated either 5s or 4.5s or above, or he just crushes it. And I have a lot of stuff from that, so I'll just run through it real quick. And point number 1 was people working against you. There's 2 different things on this. One, we talked about when I read The Alchemist. When you first decide that you're going to follow your own personal legend, like The Alchemist would say, the universe decides to give that to you, right? Like immediately there's like this push from the universe to give you exactly what your heart desires, and that's when you first start to like chase your passion. It's like the first thing, hey, you know what, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm gonna chase my passion. The first thing like pops up and it's just like boom, falls in your lap, and you're like, oh, the universe is conspiring to give me exactly what I want. And then immediately after that, right, it just gives you a taste. Immediately after that you face resistance, like hardcore, and it's really funny how that happens. But Cardone was talking about this in his book, and he was talking about people literally working against you, people in your life who love you, but yet they're working against you to tell you, you know what, I don't know if you should quit your job. I don't know if you should try to do this. It's going to be really hard. I don't know if you should start that business. I don't know if you should pursue this passion because it's not very realistic, right? They're working against you, and what he says is make sure, I mean, a lot of people are going to be working against you. Make sure that you're not one of them. Make sure that you're not beating yourself up and telling yourself that it's too hard, that it's not going to work, because you got enough people telling you that. Matter of fact, 90% of the people you talk to, they'll tell you that. One of the things that he said that I really like about this is when people tell you that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, or you can't do what you're doing, really they're reflecting on their own lives and giving themselves an excuse of why they gave up on their own passions and why they gave up on their own dreams. They're justifying it to themselves of why it's okay for them to give up by telling you that, you know, it's really hard. You know that 90, I think it's the statistic is like 92% of books that are written never get published. 90% of businesses that start fail within the first 3 years. Like everybody gives you these statistics on how rare it is to make it, and it's not like you don't know that. You're like, man, I know that. I read the statistics before I started on the journey. Why are you telling me that? Why are you trying to make it a negative thing? Like, let's stay positive. The odds are obviously already stacked against me. You don't think I know that? Like, come on. So people will always be working against you. Make sure you're not one of them. And this was another thing that was kind of cool. Spectators will always say you're crazy. Spectators will be like, man, like, why are you spending so much time? Like, I haven't seen you out in a while. You haven't come out to dinner. You haven't been hanging out. Like, what's up? Like, where you been? Well, I've been working. I've been trying to do this. I've been trying to do that. Or, hey, I mean, people tell me all the time, Sam, why you got like 6 or 7 projects right now? Shouldn't you just focus on one? I don't know, man. No, I shouldn't just focus on one. I probably should go get another project, because there's a couple. I mean, I got a couple hours of video games in last week. I'm not gonna lie, it's a couple hours of stuff I could have been doing for a different project, maybe. I'm laughing because I just started another project. I'll tell you guys about it later. But no, spectators will always tell you you're crazy. And then the crazy people, or the ones who are really obsessed, they'll look at spectators and they don't understand how they're not the same way. Like, I look at some of my friends who they like their jobs, they make decent money, and they're doing life. But I look at that and I think that's insane. Like, to have a 9 to 5, I think it's crazy to have a 9 to 5. For me, I don't know why. It just seems insane for me to work 9 to 5 for 40 to 50 years for someone else to help them accomplish their dreams and their passions. But I got to put my dreams and passions on hold until I retire and I have some money to pursue my dreams and passions. That makes zero to no sense to me. The next thing was work-life balance. This was a cool quote. He said, I don't have work-life balance because my work is my life. I'm seeking life. Everything that I get to do, this is me personally talking too, everything that I get to do, like, I'm jazzed about. I always feel like I'm working, and I always feel like I'm doing something to accomplish a goal in one of my different projects that I have going on. And it doesn't ever feel like work. Today I was out, we raised money for Camp Barnabas, which I'll be taking some youth out to Camp Barnabas, which is a camp for kids with kids and adults with special needs. And I got to run, I got to hang out, I got to work out, and I got to promote my music, I got to promote my book, I got to promote my media and entertainment business. And so it's work, but man, how do you work-life balance? Like, I don't know if that can. I'm always trying to work and now I'm doing a podcast. And honestly, I really would like to go golfing. I actually thought about going golfing before I made this podcast. I was like, no, you got to do the video blog. You've been doing it every week, and it's been going. Control is everything. This was a new thing for me. So we talk about not being a control freak. And Grant Cardone, in this book, Be Obsessed or Be Average, he would flip that on you and he'd say, no, you need to control everything. Control the controllables. Be a freaking nut. He says that he micromanages people in his business until he knows that they're good. He talks about one of his sales staff. He said, hey, I want a sales update every single hour. And then he'd call him after the hour went by and he's like, hey, man, what's up? Where's my update? And it's like, oh, sorry, my bad, here's the update. And then an X hour would go by. He'd call him again. Hey, man, what gives? Where's my update? And he said he just kept doing this and doing this. He said it took like 4 or 5 weeks before this guy would actually get the hint that, dude, I want a freaking sales update every single hour. And when you start doing stuff like that, when you start really trying to control every little minute thing, it really opens up your eyes to how little your income is coming in. I did this practice with my phone calls, right? Make phone calls for an hour, and then an update on, hey, how many people are interested? How many shows did we book? And yada, 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 right? When you're really checking every hour, and then you even do it on the days that, like, I didn't get to make phone calls, like, every hour, just remind yourself, hey, how many shows do we have? I did it for like a day, and I was like, dude, I need to get to work because I'm not doing anything. It really just pumps up your level of productivity, and that's his whole thing about controlling everything. Control what you control, because what you can control, because life has so many uncontrollables in it. Last in this book, I think this is last, is Be Dangerous. Yeah, it is last. So be dangerous. More often than not, when you're pursuing your dreams and your passion, the scary thing is the right thing to do. Really scared for me to quit my job a couple years ago. really scared to leave the life that I had started to build in Riverside, petrified, to do something so outside the box, but undoubtedly the right thing to do. I have no doubt in my mind. Another quote from the book, The Alchemist, never ignore the omens. Talking to the guys from Rags, I invited them to come out to every show that we have. I said, hey, you guys are a nonprofit, come out to every show, sell your shirts at the shows, same cause. You guys are trying to impact the youth in your community. We're trying to impact youth all over California. So any show you want to come to, have a booth. And he's like, dude, this is an omen, right? When I started Rags, that was my vision. I didn't know you were going to ask us to come out to the shows and be at all the events, but that was my vision when I started. I had no clue how that's going to happen for us, and this is him talking Rags. He said, but I just felt like we were going to have an opportunity to do that. He said, you're blowing my mind right now, that now we're going to have an opportunity to do that this summer. And so, never ignore the omens. The universe will tell you if you're doing exactly what you should be doing. So that was pretty cool. Where do we leave off? Oh, being dangerous. Being dangerous is usually the right thing. Where we discover greatness is usually on the outskirts of our comfort zone, way beyond where we're comfortable. That's where we find our best work. That's where we find our greatness. Again, Grant Cardone talks about positive pressure, putting positive pressure on yourself. When you are outside your comfort zone, there's an enormous amount of pressure on you to perform, and that is positive pressure. It's not the negative pressure that you get from a sales manager. I was this guy. I apologize to any of my staff that ever watches these, but I was this guy. Negative pressure on, you have to sell. You have to make your quota. You have to do this. We'll talk about this in the next book a little later on today. Less is more, about how incorrect that is, and how companies like that can't survive and won't survive and are destined to be around, make a little money, and then filter out unless they change the way that they interact with management and employees. And again, I was being coached on what to do and what to say and how to motivate my people. Anyway, that's here nor there. We are most dangerous and dangerous is a good thing. Remember, when we're outside of our comfort zone, we have positive pressure on ourselves. And then the third thing about being dangerous is it takes courage to make significant amount of money. I talked a couple weeks ago about the wealth gap and how the middle class is extremely poor. They just won't know it for the next 60 years, and then they'll find out they're one of the poorest people in the world. As the wealth gap gets larger and larger, and it's getting larger because the people at the top, right, anybody who's making $150,000, maybe $250,000 a year, they have the ability to invest their money and gain more money. The people who are only making 65, 70, maybe 100, right? Oh, just making 100,000 a year as a couple. We probably should save onto that money for our retirement. You're already poor, you just don't know it yet. The income gap is just getting bigger because you're holding onto your money. And these people are investing their money. So they're getting further and further and further away while you're saving and you're contracting. They're expanding. They're taking up space, which is making that bigger. I would recommend 3 different books for you guys to read. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, and Dave Ramsey's. If you read all those 3 books, you will get, Dave Ramsey's, I think, he's the person who wrote Smart Money Management. You will get a very broad and a very holistic view on how money operates, how to use money, how to grow money, how to save money, and all the above. And they're Dave Ramsey's and Rich Dad, Poor Dad are 2 different concepts. But I think holistically, if you take everything together, plus Richest Man in Babylon has like a nice little median point, you'll get a good holistic view on courage and how to be courageous in the way that you operate. One of the things that I'm doing is I'm spread super thin. Any amount of money that I come in obviously doesn't go to my living expenses. I just showed you guys earlier in the video I got them renting a room that's not even fully set up yet. And then most of the time I'm on the road. So I'm 30, gonna be 32, no mortgage, no debt. I mean, other than the debt I'm creating for myself to build this business. So it's a huge, huge risk. But again, if I believe that I'm already the poorest person in the world, I just don't know it, and I won't know it until the next 60 years go by, then it's not a risk at all. The risk would be to get a steady job, get a house, get a mortgage. That would be a pretty big risk for me, because in 60 years, I'll need $5 million just to retire comfortably. And that's what it says today. That's the estimated amount of money that someone my age, when they retire at 65, that's how much I'll need to do it comfortably with inflation and all the above. So anyway, check out those books. Let's jump over to, and I'm doing cross-legged right now. I know. I'm a bum. I get it. Less is More. Less is More by Jason Jennings. This was a pretty good book as well, so I'm going to give this one a 4.5. Less is More kind of does what Good to Great did, where they took a bunch of companies and they looked at how those companies are successful. The big idea is the main focus of Less is More. How do you sell the big idea, your environment culture, right? Your company's culture. How do you sell that cultural idea to your workers, and how do you make that stick? Again, it said that you need to get the right people on the bus. We heard that again with Good to Great. But there's this idea that if we change the culture to kind of put everybody on the same playing field, we say that wouldn't work. Oh, that'll never work. They talked about a steel company that had different helmets for all their different levels of employees. Workers wore white helmets, and the managers had yellow helmets, and then their managers had orange helmets, and the CEOs or the corporate executives had gold helmets. But if you take all those away and you put everybody on an open playing field and you let people speak, I believe that same steel company actually took the time to teach all of their employees, including the workers, how spreadsheets work, and how much money the company was making, and how much money the company was losing, and what their income was for this last month, and what their proposed income was for the next month. So literally, like, you have people who are just like steel workers, right? And they're in sales meetings, and they're looking at all the revenue coming in, all the revenue going out. And I also talked about paying people on their performance and not necessarily on salaries. A lot of the companies that were successful were companies that were paying way less on salary, but way more on a team-based, I'm going to say it wrong, meritocracy, there you go. Like a team-based meritocracy, meaning we're going to judge the group as a whole, right? And again, I'm a huge libertarian, but this is some of Benjamin Franklin's stuff. He was a huge proponent for co-ops, but not for corporations. He thought corporations were inherently evil because you are paying your workers very, very little and they have no stake in the company. Now, he didn't think it's evil to make money or to make gross amounts of money. He thought it was evil as far as, this is kind of like Soulcraft or Shop Class for the Soulcraft that we reviewed a couple weeks ago, is when you work with your hands and when you have a part of something, it builds up your soul. There's something about working for something and getting paid not only a fair wage, but a wage that reflects you having a hand in the business. So that was the main idea of the book. Another great question that was given to any business that's operating, they said, when you go to make a decision, regardless of what the decision is, you ask, what is the good sense? What is the good business sense of doing this? Talks about a bank, and I can't remember what bank it was talking about. It's kind of all blurred together right now, but one of the banks, it's the most successful bank. It didn't crash when everybody else crashed. It didn't have extended mortgages. They weren't they weren't exposed when the 2008 crash happened. So they're talking about this bank, and everybody got ATMs. And this bank decided not to get ATMs because when they looked at it and they asked themselves that question, what is the good business sense for getting ATMs, they couldn't make sense of it. Said, well, we don't need ATMs. The customers that we have, I mean, if we lose customers because we don't have ATMs, like, that's okay, we just won't do it. And again, they survived when everybody else had to go get government subsidies. They couldn't do it. I think Josh is tuned up his Impala and he's out there revving it up. So that was, one of the good questions that I think I can use to do. Right now I'm trying to possibly expand Fragoza Media and spend a good chunk of money on some rental equipment that we can rent out every time we do a shoot. And the only danger in that is right now we're only working with, we're primarily working just with Dwyer Productions. We have another production company that we work with every once in a while, but 99.9% of our work is coming from Dwyer, so that might not be the best decision to do. What's the best business sense to do that? So I got to mull that over in my head. Another phrase that came up, this was kind of cool, because I used to work with a guy named Scott Cribb who used to say this all the time, Kaizen. He used to be like, man, we could Kaizen this. And I just thought it was a word this guy made up. Kaizen is a Japanese word, and Kaizen means the common sense thing to do. And so Toyota is the one who came up with it. Toyota took some of Henry Ford's methods for the assembly line, plus the other some other methods of really changing the way that they made cars and manufactured items. And they did it so well they came up with this phrase, Kaizening, is used by a bunch of other businesses. One of the businesses they talked about was a printer making business, where I believe they were just making printers, and they set it up to where literally as an order came in, they literally would build one machine at a time per order. So we have an order for 3 printers. Okay, we'll build 3 printers, and we'll get them out literally in like 11 hours. And there's some really amazing stories in this book. Last but not least from this book was short-term versus long-term vision. And the quote was, "A general who divides his forces will always be defeated." We get this idea, and a lot of these corporations got this idea, and the ones that didn't last were the ones that tried to conquer everything all at once. Hey, I'm going to come into the company, and we have all these different problems, and I'm going to have these guys go fix this one, these guys fix this one, these guys fix this one, this fix this, and ready, go. What you're doing is really dividing all of your forces and to try to tackle a giant thing. But if you would just take your forces and you would say, this is the problem that we're having, let's tackle it. Cool. Got it running good? Cool. This is the problem that we're tackle it. All right, good. And now that I'm saying this dawns on me. It would be helpful to me if I can allocate myself, right? My forces, allocate myself to one project at a time in months spans, if that makes any sense. So right now I'm facing probably 3 to 4 different crises. We have books that are way late. The album is taking way too long, and I need funding for Fragoza Media for that expansion that I talked about. So once I get these things done, I think maybe trying to do like 3-month sprints might help, and I'll think about this more and talk on it later if it comes up again, but maybe like a 3-month sprint on the album. All right, 3 months focused, done. 3-month sprint on getting funding. All right, done. The only problem with that is because all these things are their separate deal, fires kind of just come up and problems come up when they should have been long gone. Because I tried to do a little sprint on Josh and the Sock Army, and I ordered those books last year. That should have already been done, taken care of, and we should have a different problem of booking schools right now. But no, that's just some interesting stuff. Both books, amazing. You should check them both out. For my next book, I'm going to let you guys vote again. You guys voted last time. That's how I ended up reading Less is More. I am in the middle of, or I just started yesterday, Gary Vaynerchuk's The Thank You Economy. So I'm going to be reviewing that next week. And I'm going to let you guys vote on the other book, again, because I'm going to try to knock out two. We're going to do Traction by Gino Wickman, Crush It by Gary Vee, or Losing $1 Million. And I didn't write down who wrote that book, and I'm not going to waste your guys' time. I'm telling you, but those will be the three. They'll be on my Twitter page. So Twitter has the little way how you can vote. You guys can find me on Twitter. Just go to Sam Fragoza. You'll find me. Upcoming this week, before I bounce out of here, Monday and Tuesday, we're shooting in San Francisco again with Dwyer. That's another 2 days of shooting. That's awesome. I think we're up to like almost 15 gigs that we did with them just this year. I think last year we only did 7 to 10. So that business is picking up. Wednesday, I am filming for the tour, and we're going to talk about graphics designs with all the merchandise for the tour. We're meeting with Rags again and giving them some designs to print all of our t-shirts. Thursday, I'm going to play at Vine and Branches with the lead singer, one of the lead singers from Awaken Worship. We're going to do a little impromptu show that we're going to do over there. I'm going to try to get my buddy Danny to come play with us too, and maybe even Jeff Johnson. See if I can get him out there and jam out a little bit. Friday, I have my mixing review, so we're going to go over all the mixing that we've done so far on the album, take a listen to it, see what else it needs. And your word of inspiration today comes from Grant Cardone. Being obsessed with your passion can literally keep you from wandering around aimlessly on earth. Don't be one of those people. I'll talk to you guys next week. Later.